Okay, recording in progress. Okay, luckily I remember. Okay, so coming back to this Jackson Plan 1823, the British, when they come to Singapore, they decide to divide the population into different ethnic enclaves. So the Chinese are located to the left, to the the west side of the Singapore River, which is now known as Chinatown, and they call it the Chinese Kampong. Okay, and near to the Chinese Kampong is the Chulia Kampong. The Chulia Kampong was the Indian village. Okay, Chulia is a place in India, so now you call it Little India. And then next, the central area is known as the Civic Center, which is the European town. This is where the British so-called colonial masters reside. Okay, they have an open square, and they have the civic center. The government buildings are located here. And then towards the eastern side, you see the Sultan's compound there, the Sultan's compound and the mosque. That's where the Arabs were located. So they call it the Arab Kampong. So the original Bugis town that was located, that the circle there labeled as European town, they were transferred towards the east of the Sultan's mosque, okay, and the palace, and then that's where Bugis Kampong is. So you know now that Bugis Kampong is known as Bugis Village, right? So that's how it was. Bugis, the Bugis people, they come from Sulawesi, which is an island in modern day Indonesia, somewhere in the eastern side of Indonesia. So you have the Bugis, and then most of the Bugis at the time were traders. So they came all the way from Sulawesi to Singapore to trade. So they are Malays, considered Malays, but they are quite distinct from the indigenous Malays staying in Singapore and Malaya at that time. Okay, so Bugis village here, you also have a Malacca village, so on and so forth. So the Malays and the Muslims were located near the Sultan's compound and the mosque, and then the Arabs also located there, and the Chinese and the Indians were located on the left side, on the western side of the Singapore River. Okay, so this is how the British decide to do that, so that it is easier to, when they clump all the ethnic groups together, they can rule more efficiently. That's why in the past, when you talk about colonialism, there's always this issue of divide and conquer. So you can manage the different ethnic people more effectively. They can rule them. So when they get together, you can easily rule them. Okay. Okay. Next. Oh, go back. Okay. So this is how this was how the city central area looked like. Primarily focused at the Singapore River. It's a very old photo, that's why it's grainy. And if you sat through my city tour talk last year, we did a walk here along the Boat Quay area. At the time, before the 1980s, there were many junk boats. Many boats here that carried the goods from the ships on the sea. So they brought it in into the warehouses and warehouses and shop houses lining the Singapore River. So it was so crowded and it's smelly and it's dirty. Okay, so this was how the trade was conducted. Back then, we did not have any containers, any wharves and the ports like in Jurong or Tuas. A lot of the goods were transferred from the ships out there onto these boats and then carried to the warehouses lined along the Singapore River. And the living conditions were pretty bad. Majority of residents stayed in these shop houses, and they are all crowded. In fact, these shop houses were quite dilapidated, derelict. They're all cramped, and their working conditions were bad, and then the living conditions were bad. Some of them do not have any sanitation facilities. It was really unsanitary. So for the people living in the city area, this was how it looked like. Okay. Okay, so this was the ethnic enclave that I mentioned earlier. Top left is the Kampong Gelam area where you can see the Sultan Mosque there, right? Then we typically have all the shop houses. On the top right, that's Raffles Square. See, Raffles Square, that time no MRT. That was the car park. So the people working in the banks and financial institutions back then, they park their car. Okay, owning a car back then was a big luxury. Actually, now also it's expensive to own a car, but back then it was seen as a real status symbol. So only the bank managers, bank presidents could afford a car. So they park their cars there, right in the central plaza, in the middle of Raffles Square. That's why it's called. That's why it's called Raffles Square, right? So that is where the Western powers reside. Okay, and then on the left bottom area, that's Chinatown. Chinatown also full of shop houses and cramped with immigrants. The majority of the people staying in the city were Chinese people. Okay, they were all immigrants from China. And on the bottom right, that's that is actually South Bridge Road, beginning of where the Indians are. Where the Indians were. There's a Jami' Mosque, by the way. You can see that with the twin minarets. That's Jami' Mosque. Okay, this mosque is still currently there. It's already a monument. Okay, considered a monument, so it could not be demolished. Could only be refurbished. Okay, next. So the majority of Singaporeans stayed in the rural area. This is a kampong, picture of kampong. Back then, many Singaporeans stayed in timber houses with atap roof. Okay, I used to stay in a kampong myself in Bukit Timah until 1990. So it is only 30 years ago that people were still living in kampongs, something like that. But of course, not as what you see here in the photos. Okay, with all these unsanitary conditions. You look at the drain there. The drain is open, right, and it's not even constructed properly. Okay, so back then, majority of Singaporeans stayed in kampongs. So if you want to go to the town, you really got to go to the main trunk roads and get to town. It's so inconvenient. So a lot of Singaporeans, either they work in the city or they just work near where they stay, okay, in the rural area. Next, okay, I'm going to talk about the big picture now, the macro, how it all came about. Okay, first, we're going to talk about the master plans. What are master plans and how we plan the city? It's really important to know how the city is built, because all of us now, if you know Singapore is a city state, what's the capital of Singapore? You know? I hear some of you like wondering, looking blankly. Actually, Singapore, the capital is Singapore City lah. There's no capital because the whole Singapore is a city. From Jurong all the way to Changi, it is a city. We don't have any more kampongs. Many of the kampongs were already raised, and majority of Singaporeans already stay in either in HDB estates or in private condominium housing. In fact, almost 90% of Singaporeans are staying in HDB houses. Okay. And the rest stay in either private property, landed property, or condominiums. So majority of us, I mean, we are all urbanites, or rather urban residents staying in the city. So it is really important to know about urban city planning, because it is affecting every one of us here. Really, from the time we wake up to the time we sleep, and it's affecting how we work, how we live, and how we play. So we need to know how this whole city is designed, because nowadays the government seeks a bit of dialogue from us so that we can give them feedback so that they can design the city better. We vote for them, right? So they are accountable to make our life more comfortable. Okay, so they cannot be using the top-down approach. They are now using the softer approach, which is to consult the people staying in the city. Okay, this one I'll talk to you more about it later. So why do we need city planning? First of all, because there's rapid population growth. Do you know what's the population of Singapore right now? Anybody just put out your fingers. Do you know, guys, know what's the population? Is it 2 million? Is it 3 million? 4 million? 5 million? 7 million? Anyone can just put up your fingers. Nurul or Afifa. Lily, oh, 8 million? Tak boleh lah, cannot be 8 million. 8 million, the MRT will be super crowded. Okay, actually there are 5 point something million, okay? Close to 6 billion, but the planners are indeed planning to accommodate almost 7 million people. So our area is only about 700 plus kilometers square. To put in 7 million people, that is quite a challenge. Okay, so that's why we need city planning. So rapid population growth. Back when I was a teenager in the 80s, Singaporean population is only about 2 point something billion. Now it's like double because we have people coming from overseas to work, foreign talent they call it, FT, and Singaporeans. So we make up now about 5 point something billion. So how do we accommodate so many people into 700 plus kilometers square? So that's why it's very important to know how to fit all these people. Otherwise, people get crowded, not happy, then they don't go to, they won't be happy lah. So we need to make people happy. Okay, then next, our economy is also expanding. How do we accommodate infrastructure? How do we accommodate where people work, offices, industrial buildings, high-tech buildings? All this we need to place into Singapore, because if you want to increase the economy, you need to attract investors from overseas as well. So we need to place these offices, place this factories, so and so forth, into the onto the island. And yes, because we are also a small country, so that's why it is really important. Every square kilometers of Singapore is precious. You cannot just anyhow plonk a building out of the blue somewhere. And you also want to make the city beautiful. You know that Singapore is a beautiful city. It doesn't come by accident, it's all planned. So by the time you land at Changi Airport, and then you want to get to anywhere, say Jurong, the whole journey is so-called curated, so-called designed. You do not want to see like, hey, how come there's a factory next to a mosque, for example? Okay, or how come there is a supermarket next to a school? I mean, no lah, maybe that's not a good example. How come there's a bungalow house next to a hospital, for example? Okay, I've been to cities where the city planning doesn't seem planned. It's more like, I would say, organic. Okay, there is this, when I went to Penang, Georgetown, I was driving through the roads. It was so jammed, okay, with cars, and the roads are narrow, and I wonder why. Because the roads are really narrow, and they're not well built and not well planned, and it's a main road. And because it's not designed to accommodate the traffic, you get jams all the time. And I'm quite amazed to see tall hotels located near one-story buildings. You know, it's like, hey, how come it's so random? And how come it's not? It looks a bit chaotic. So I think if the country or the city plans everything better, then everything looks more organized, looks more efficient. Okay, that's why it is really important to know principles of city planning, so that the city looks beautiful, and most importantly, is comfortable to live with in, and therefore you don't get any inconveniences such as traffic jams, which are not necessary, which could be averted. Okay, most of the time, traffic jams or this kind of small inconveniences could be averted or could be prevented if you put your mind to it, or you put your brains together, God-given brain, to improve our life. Okay, so bear in mind that one. Okay, so next time if you want to complain, don't just say, oh, this is God's fate or whatever. No, it could be somebody not doing their job. Okay, next. What is a concept plan? So the concept plan is the bigger macro thing. It's like looking at a very big picture. It's a long-term land use plan which guides Singapore development over the next 40 to 50 years. Okay, we are looking at big picture, 40 to 50 years. Because in Singapore, we don't like to look at just 5 years. 5 years is very fast. You all remember when you all entered primary 1, right? Then you close one eye, close the other eye, boop, you are taking PSLE already. 5 years. 5 years is really fast, you know. Maybe for you it's slow lah. You want to get to Sec 1 right away, right? But for most of us adults, 5 years is really very fast. So you can't do much in 5 years. It takes 2 years to build a school. It takes 5 years to build a hospital, and it could take more than 5 years to build an MRT line. Okay, so that's why you need to take a bigger, a longer period to design something. Okay, that's why we take the big whole concept in 40 to 50 years. So what is a concept plan? Basically, it shows how to allocate land use and how to incorporate transportation so that all the needs are met. All your operations that you need to do, whether you want to live, whether you want to work, all these are met. Okay, and it is reviewed every 10 years. The smaller one will be the master plan. This is more in detail, and it is for just 10 to 15 years. Okay, same thing. It also shows land use and it also shows density. How much when I mean density is how tall the buildings are going to be, or how close the buildings are together, and this is going to be shown later in the micro aspect. Okay, what are the setbacks, how many stories you are allowed to build, what's the GFA, or how much area you can build. These are the more the details, and this translates into the detailed plans. Okay, so that when you are given a plot of land, when the government sells you the plot of land to you, you know how to build your property, how to build up your property. So it's really important. So you need to know how many stories, how many, what's the distance between building to building, or even to your neighbors, so that everything looks organized and orderly. Okay, and is reviewed every 5 years. So the first master plan was released in 1958. Most of us were not even born in 1958. Okay, this was when Singapore was still a colony. You notice how different Singapore looked like on a map. Okay, this was the Singapore plan that I'm really used to. Okay, you notice that the Jurong Island is still separated into several smaller islands. It's not amalgamated or not joined up yet. Okay, and you can see that even Pulau Tekong is smaller. See here, Pulau Tekong is smaller, and the coastal line is still quite organic, right? Beach Road wasn't Beach Road yet. Okay, there wasn't any beach road. So Singapore used to look like that, and most of the roads the main roads were located on the southern part of Singapore, next to the city center. Then you had the main trunk roads, and much of it was rural land. Okay, rural means village, not urban. If for those people, for those of you who do not know what is urban, urban means related to the city. Rural means the outskirts or the villages. Okay, so this was the first concept plan. Designed in 1971. Okay, so this was 6 years after independence. As you can see from the concept plan of 1971, there is already some division of land use where the government located. You see the purple is mostly industrial. So there were plans to make Jurong the industrial part of Singapore. Okay, this part here is Jurong, and then at the northern fringes, again, it's this part is woodlands. Much of it is also industry. So the heavy industry will be located at the purple areas, and the main concept is to have a ring surrounding the central catchment area. See the middle here, that is the central catchment area, comprising of the reservoirs, MacRitchie Reservoir, Seletar Reservoir, Pierce Reservoir, and also Bukit Timah Hill. Okay, this is the central catchment area. So you cannot build over this area because it's important. It's an important place to collect water, and it's important place for nature to be. You cannot just clear away Bukit Timah. Okay, so it is vital. So the planners design all the living spaces and living areas surrounding this huge water catchment area. So you can see the residential lands surrounding it, and still at the bottom, at the areas marked as blue, that's where the financial district is, and it's still currently the financial district. So at the time, in 1971, the Singapore government has already established HDB, Housing Development Board, and we are building a lot of satellite towns around the central catchment area. So you've got towns like Queenstown, you've got Toa Payoh. Toa Payoh will be somewhere around my blue dot here. You can see the blue dot? Can you see the blue dot? You can't. My cursor, can you see the blue dot? If you can't, never mind. Anyway, it's the government is trying to build all the neighborhood estates surrounding the catchment area. So that's why 1971 it's defined by the ring concept. Okay, and at the time, in 1971, the airport was located in Kallang. Okay, it wasn't at Paya Lebar yet, but the planners were already designing or rather planning to build an airport on the eastern fringe of Singapore, right here at Changi. Okay, so it makes sense because the airport being at the eastern side, it will not be, if it's not smack in the center of the city, it's also good for safety, and it's also good for land development. So we can maximize land use on this side, and we keep the airport on the eastern side, so that it's safe, and it also allows for flexibility of use on the other parts of Singapore. Okay, so the concept plan of 1971 is meant to last for 20 years. So the next concept plan was released in 1991. I guess most of you were not even born in 1991. Okay, as you can see here, what's the difference between 1971 and 1991? By 1991, Singapore was already a first world city. We already have many skyscrapers in the central business district. We have lots of shopping centers in Orchard Road. We already have the MRT. Okay, so wait, hold on a minute. Okay, we already have MRT, we have Orchard Road. So Singapore was already kind of developed in 1991. So we cannot make it like a basic city planning. It has to incorporate the finer aspects of living. That means the finer aspects of working, finer aspects of how we work and interact with nature. Because we are a garden city, so we want to make this more defined. Okay, so the planners were trying to weave nature, water bodies into the urban areas. So we do not want our city to be like a concrete jungle where we are all surrounded by concrete and glass, steel buildings. We want it to be pleasant to be lived in. So we try, the government wants to weave in, or rather the planners decide to weave in elements of greenery and nature into the places we work and we live in. Okay, and also in 1991, we are already moving towards high-tech industries. That means using computers, using the internet. So there is the introduction of technological corridors, namely along the Buona Vista area. Okay, business parks, science parks, and these are linked to the tertiary institutions. That means the National University of Singapore. So now if you go along AYE, you can see the science park, right? It is very near National University of Singapore. So it's there is this synergistic relationship between the research and development centers as well as the learning centers. Okay, and we also need to have the business parks where we have high-tech industries. Okay, looking at software development, looking at computer production, wafer and subconductor manufacturing, all this. Okay, so we also want to promote innovation. At the time, Singapore is really trying to move away from heavy industry like shipbuilding. They are moving towards electronics. Okay, and so it is important to create such business parks. Okay, and also by this time, because of our petrochemical industry where we refine oil, and you know that Singapore refines oil. Okay, so this is located at the southern islands, and then they were amalgamated or combined to be Jurong, what you know as Jurong Island now. See the purple huge island there at the south part of Jurong. That's called Jurong Island, and of course you have the bridges to connect from the main island to this Jurong Island. So now at Jurong Island, you have lots of petrochemical companies like Mobil, Exxon, and Shell with their research facilities as well as their refining facilities. And you can see also that the shape starts to be slightly different from the 1971 concept plan. You can see the eastern coast here getting straighter, more regularized, they call it. Okay, so to allow better roads to be built, infrastructure to be built, and also allow better parcellation of plots of land. So you can still see the airport here at the eastern side. So this is 1991. 10 years later, 2001, it's almost the same, but you can see the reclamation of Jurong gets even more extended. It looks if you look at Google Earth, Singapore really looks kind of unnatural here. Okay, it looks like something that looks like an arm. Because Singapore went through extensive reclamation. That means what's land reclamation? That means they dredge land from the sea and then they place it here so that they can build and extend more land and build for industrial use here. Okay, and also to service the trade ships coming in from Europe so that they can come here. Okay, but still, in 2001, we have already moved into the 21st century. So people are getting more sophisticated. People are already using the internet, and it changed the way people work. So the planners have to meet new demands and in how we work, in how we play, how we live in. And therefore, people are already expecting a higher standard of living, a better quality of living. So the planners have to give more options, more recreational spaces. And with that, and there's also this in the 1980s, there's a lot of demolition of heritage buildings. And people already start to question, are we developing very, very fast? Are we going to lose our heritage and identity? For example, some shop houses in Chinatown were raised to make way for tall office buildings, and people were like, "Hey, can we keep all this? Because otherwise we'll be losing our memory, you know." So, because of progress, there is this the unfortunate removal of our places that we love and we remember. So there is a need to have more balance. Okay, either you want development or you want to conserve. So because of this kind of feedback, the planners decide to, okay, let us look at the whole design again. Okay, how do we make more places that people can be connected with, and how people can be have a sense of connection to the place, a sense of belonging to the place that they live in. So because of that, we have the identity plans. The planners look at certain areas. What is the character? What's the special features of the zones? For example, Kampung Glam, Tiong Bahru. What is so special about Tiong Bahru? What's so special about Kampung Glam? How do we enhance these special features that are already there? So instead of bulldozing everything, why not rejuvenate or make it better, and therefore making people happier to live in? So by that time, in 2001, they are looking at an identity plan, and also because we also want to balance nature and water features. The planners released also the parks and water bodies plan. So we want to integrate nature and urban. Okay, and in 2011, that's the most recent one. So I said every 10 years, right? We have not received the concept plan 2021 yet. I think because of the current situation. But in 2011, still the same thing. But it's by this time, they were already speaking with public stakeholders, the public, the dialogue with the people living in the areas. So it is not just the planners working in silo mode or independently, but now they are working together with the people who matter most, the people who are affected by all these planning regulations, i.e. you. Okay, so what they want is to really have a city with really high quality standards of living by 2030. How old will you be in 2030? Come to think of it, 2030, back then it looks like, oh, it's the future, flying cars, whatever, right? 2030, but when you reflect, it's only 8 years from now. We are December 2021, you know, we are almost reaching 2022. If you are 15 now, you'll be 23 or 24 in 2030. So that's how close we are to 2030. So how would 2030 be like? Is it going to be super exciting? Of course, I mean, you don't expect flying cars, but how are we going to live in 2030? Are we going to have lots of greenery? Are we going to have, okay, something like robots or driverless vehicles? Are we going to have internet working so seamlessly that, you know, you don't need to get out of your house, you can work from home? We're already doing that, working from home. So these are the kinds of demands that the planners need to anticipate. We do not want to be like, you react to certain situations already when they arrive. So the philosophy is you must plan for it before it arrives. Okay, so so technology is moving very fast. Culture is also moving very fast. People are using internet, social media as part and parcel of their daily life already. So how do we address that? So the planners got to be up to speed. Okay, you cannot be like sitting around and be not doing anything to address all the concerns. And also because we are facing challenges with the environment and climate. Okay, how do we address that? What if we are affected by global warming? Have you ever considered that? Global warming, if you do not plan for it, if global warming happens and the water levels rise and we are not ready, that's it, we're going to have flooding. Okay, so these are the kinds of things that the planners have to anticipate and then plan accordingly. Okay, so we are going to look at that. Okay, so it's going to be very exciting for the future. I'm really excited after doing this research. Then I see, wow, really, we are really progressive. You know, we have lots of interesting ideas, and who knows, you guys can also be part of the conversation. Okay, you guys may have your own ideas about how to make Singapore such a wonderful city to live in. Yeah, you guys can look at that too, right? And that's why we have this talk, so that at least you have some basic knowledge here, and then if you decide to pursue this in your tertiary studies, yes, then you can see how you can improve our city. Next, so we are going to look at the key themes. What are the big ideas in master plan? Okay, when I do this compilation of the slides, I'm like, whoa, if I'm going to deliver a 2-hour lecture on this or webinar on this, I'm going to take it's not going to be enough. It's going to take like, wow, maybe a few days. Okay, so I try to condense it, okay, into manageable content so that it won't be too difficult. So we look at the big ideas first, okay? Because if you don't look at the big ideas, you do not know, hey, how come the details are like that, right? Okay, so we look at the big pictures. First and foremost, okay, all these are coming from Master Plan 2019, the latest one, okay? From the concept plan of 2011, then you have the latest is Master Plan 2019. So the main idea is to have livable, inclusive communities. Inclusivity is such a huge, big term right now, especially in our social media culture. Everybody wants to be included. Okay, the disabled wants to be included, the elderly. So you got to respect anybody, everyone, the rights of everybody. So it's not just the rich, it's not just the people who work in the city. No, you need to respect everybody's rights, as all Singaporean citizens. So you need to create environments that are well lived and where people can really enjoy. Okay, so that's the first starting point. We need to have a city that is livable and accommodate all sectors of the community: the aged, the sick, the young, so on and so forth. So first part is connecting neighborhoods with park connectors. I'm sure now with the current situation, you've seen on your social media people cycling all around the island, right? Along the green corridor, rail corridor. All this you're familiar, right? People cycling here, running here and there. That's because the land parks. N parks, not land parks. N parks, which is the authority in charge of parks and greenery, together with URA, which is the authority body in charge of building, Urban Redevelopment Authority. Together, they plan a series of park connectors that allows neighborhoods to be connected seamlessly. So you have the Eastern Corridor, the Coast to Coast Southern Trail. So we really want to make it so easy to get from Jurong to Changi without taking public transport. That's considered like a radical idea, right? But why we need to do this? So that we don't rely so much on cars. Because if just now, I'm sure you've watched that video, they mentioned words like car light. Because Singapore is such a small country, we do not want to have so many cars on the roads that can create unnecessary traffic jams. And because if you have so much jam, then there is this pressure to build more roads. And if you build more roads, then you are using the valuable space that could be used for other purposes. Okay, so that's why a lot of the town planning now revolves around car light, CARLITE. Okay, car light. That means less use of vehicles. So that's why we have all this a network of connectors. Like so you can enjoy running, cycling, jogging, whatever lah, between neighborhoods. Of course, these are designed with greenery, lush greenery, flowers, so that people enjoy while they work, and also in shade, so that Singapore is a hot tropical country. We want to still make it enjoyable for people to walk in between estates. And also, I mentioned about incorporating nature and water bodies, greenery. So as you can see here, this is in Punggol. So we have created waterways, okay, natural waterways, where the planners have collected the water that's drained from the public area onto this waterway. So the rainwater doesn't get absorbed into the ground, but they flow into these streams, so that it looks like you are staying near a river. Okay, it's more pleasant. So while walking through the park connectors, you're also enabled to enjoy the birds and otters. Sometimes I'm living near the same kind of waterway. Sometimes I see egrets that I don't normally see in a city. I also see otters, and I also see babi hutan, wild boar, near my place. So nature has somehow crossed over into our public urban spaces. So there is this somehow of a blurring. So yeah, it's like living in a garden rather than living in a concrete jungle. Okay. Then there's also greenery integrated with buildings. So why are there roof gardens? Why are there such things, roof terraces with plants? Because we want to have nature being replaced, not because we already cut down the trees, so we want to plant back the trees into our buildings. It is also more pleasant when you open your windows and you see more green, right? Trees, plants, and also bring oxygen into our environment, and then because the trees are here, you also can see birds. Of course, you don't see monkeys and whatnot, but sometimes you can hear birds chirping when you wake up. So nature, when it's integrated with buildings, the greenery, when it's integrated with buildings, it helps to bring nature back into the environment. And because land is so precious and so valuable in Singapore right now, the planners decide to combine many kinds of facilities or amenities into one-stop buildings, one-stop developments for multiple generations. So this is the first instance. If you're familiar with Kampong Admiralty, just next to Admiralty MRT station, right? Are you familiar with this building? If yes, please thumbs up. Anybody of you who are staying in Woodlands or Admiralty in the north side of Singapore, this is the first instance where the planners combine a polyclinic, food court or hawker center, a library, a senior citizen center, as well as studio flats and childcare centers in one development, so that when the grandparents can look after the kids. Okay, you know, normally the working parents will send the children to their grandparents while they are at work, so they can send the children to the grandfather's place. So while during the school hours, the grandparents can send the kids to the childcare center. So and sometimes it's difficult for the elderly to go to polyclinics which are far away. So rather than build a polyclinic a distance away, why not build a polyclinic right there where they stay? So they place a polyclinic or a health center, health screening center, so on and so forth, in the same development, so that they can take the lift, go downstairs, just go down to the polyclinic. And sometimes they want to eat their lunch or dinner, they can go straight down to the hawker center right below at a public space. And you want to go to a supermarket? Yes, it's right there at the basement. So it is a one-stop amenity for everybody. So not just for the elderly, also for the young to enjoy. Another example of this is in Tampines Hub. For you guys staying in the east, you guys are very lucky, because this is also another instance where a lot of functions were combined in one space. Previously, it's just, okay, you want to have a stadium? Yeah, you build on one plot. You want to have a commercial center with supermarkets and whatnot? You build on one plot. You want to have a library? Another plot. So all these take up valuable land use. Instead of that, just combine everything in just one space. So Tampines Hub, you have a sports stadium, you have a football stadium, you have swimming pools, you have a library, you have many food courts and restaurants, cafes, whatnot. You have a plaza which shows, you also have a hawker center, you have plaza which shows TV programs, you know, the senior citizens can sit there and watch. You have a theater, lots of things here happening. So it's very vibrant, and it's also a magnet. It's a hub. It draws all the residents staying in an area. Not only is it's a magnet, okay, for purpose of being a facility, it also raises the value of all the properties in the surrounding area. Because if you have a facility like this next to where you live, it automatically raises the value of your residential property. That's why a lot of people, no matter how expensive it is, they want to stay near this facility, because in the future when they want to sell it, they can fetch a higher price. This is extra bonus knowledge for you guys. This is not taught in school. Okay, so sometimes when you want to buy a house, it's also important for you to know where you are located. Are you located next to an amenity, facility? If you are, then good. More convenient for you, but it also means that next time your property value will increase. So it's all about location. Okay, and that's why you need to know master planning. Because if you want to build a house next time, if you want to buy a house, if you know what's going to be planned there, then you can plan likewise how to put your resources into those kind of properties. Okay, next. Okay, we are also looking at communal living rooms, okay, where people gather to participate in a joint activity. Okay, no longer a living room where the family watch TV, but it is a space where the whole public can come together and watch an activity. So here we have a wayang kulit session at Bugis area. Okay, so the government wants people to, the planners or rather, want people to come out and make the city alive even at night. Because, you know, if you work in the city and past working hours, and if there's no one around, it'll be dead at night. We do not want that kind of situation. So we want the city to be alive and vibrant all the time. Okay, and draw people so that people can come and make the place alive. So the spaces are created so that we can have such events to take place. Similarly, we want more pedestrian-friendly places. This is somewhere in Little India. So we divert the traffic away so that we can have such cultural activities like this. Okay, this is like a Indian procession. See the Bhangra dancers at the back here with the drums and so on and so forth. So it enlivens the whole street atmosphere. It's not just cars, and then you got to, you know, imagine if you're walking along the street, you see cars, then you're, hey, I got to walk at the pavement, right? But instead here, you are able to cross from shop to shop without worrying about being knocked down. Okay. So even in Chinatown, certain places in Chinatown, we have the same things. The roads are no longer open to cars, and before COVID happens, certain parts of Busra Street itself is pedestrianized, no longer having cars, so that people can sit there and have their coffee sessions and all. Okay. Just now I mentioned about identity. So we look at certain places and there is a certain charm, local charm to that area. This is at Tiong Bahru, if you are familiar. There are many old STI Singapore Trust improvement flats there, built in the 1930s and 40s before the independence. Before we achieved independence in 1960s, a lot of them are really charming Art Deco flats, okay, low-rise flats, and we have lots of cafes, art shops, bookshops, so on and so forth down there. Yep. And there's a certain charm that is not seen in modern Singapore. So people there are more laid back. So instead of raising and changing all these places with the kind of charm, why not rejuvenate and why not preserve it? So that's why the government, the planners, encouraging this kind of places to still remain that kind of flavor. If you are not familiar, I would advise you, encourage you to really go to Tiong Bahru, go to Tiong Bahru Market, ask your parents to bring you along lah. Then you can enjoy the places there and then chill out. Okay, now it's holidays, right? No need to work to wait for weekend. You can just go down anytime. Maybe take a sketchbook and then draw down there or whatever. Enjoy the place. Okay, and also Kampong Glam is very close to us because it's a so-called the Malay Muslim center. The historical or legacy, what you call it. So here we have Malay cultural dance, and a lot of people just, okay, Busra Street used to be a street for cars, but ever since we pedestrianize it, a lot of people gather there to just chill out and have dinner, and then it's also open for cultural activities. So here we have a dance, and against the backdrop of Masjid Sultan at the back there, it is more special. Okay, so you know that you are in a place that is special and a characteristic of Malay Muslim culture. And then this is Chinatown. Okay, Chinatown may look a bit touristy. It may lack the authenticity of the past, but yet again, they still have crafts and still have shops selling things that are normally associated with Chinese culture. And of course, you have a lot of makan spaces down there where people know that this is Chinese food. Okay. But if you want to really see the true Singaporean, I advise you to go to Little India. Little India has lots of places that are really, really, truly Indian. the people selling the clothes or the stuff there are Indian. The products are also come from India, and some are locally made, and it's really associated with Indian culture. So I tell you guys, this weekend or this school holidays, go to these places, immerse yourself in the culture. Don't just read from magazines or books or internet. Go there and then immerse yourself in the culture. Then you really can appreciate the history, the culture of the space, the people going there and all, right? Okay. Then the other thing is about rejuvenating historical monuments. So instead of demolishing them, why not give them a new building use? So for example, City Hall used to be the seat of government. Now it's converted to a national gallery. So instead of tearing down everything, they sort of refurbish it. Okay, A&A meaning addition and alteration. They add a new roof. They add new spaces for art exhibitions. So you are looking at you're visiting a really majestic building here, housing a lot of artworks, prestigious artworks. Okay, so that is what we call reuse, readaptation, using an old building that has already is quite defunct in its use. That means you no longer use it for a certain purpose. Instead of demolishing it, you use it for another purpose. Okay, that's called reuse. Then the next main idea is to have convenient and sustainable mobility. Again, that's why I say connectivity is very important. So we look at how to make mobility and how to make accessibility interwoven into our daily lives. That's why we have our transport nodes, very easy to be assessed. You have our MRT stations, and right next to our MRT stations, we have our LRT stations, we have our bus stops, and we have spaces for us to park our bicycles, so on and so forth. And we have commercial developments, shops, offices surrounding these transport nodes. So it's easy to get to work, and it's easy to even work there and maybe do your shopping, so on and so forth. This is one of the measures taken. You can see this being built right now, probably open in 2026. Okay, barring the delays of current situation. It's called the Transit Priority Corridor, where instead of having roads purely for cars and motorcycles and lorries, whatnot, we also have dedicated cycling and walking paths. And to make traffic movement much faster for public transport, we have bus priority lanes, which could be underground as well or could be on surface. And we can also have fully dedicated bus lanes. So that means the buses don't need to weave through the traffic, the heavy traffic, so it's just dedicated for them. So it's easier for people to get onto to the bus stops. And as you can see there in the section, right, the bus stop is next to a park. So instead of crossing so many roads to get to the bus stop, it's so much easier. And then the bus can really move swiftly and efficiently. And here, the government is also looking at autonomous vehicles. Autonomous vehicles meaning vehicles that are driverless, okay, that can carry people, groups of people in smaller vehicles. So on-demand AV, autonomous vehicles. So they are all located right next to MRT stations and right underneath the main plazas. So you stay on top, but you get connected on the lower levels. The traffic is located below the walking and pedestrian spaces. Okay, these are the kind of strategies that we'll look at for future town planning. So the traffic is separated from the pedestrians. Okay. And Singapore is also looking at how to make living, or rather near your work, more easier. So we have planned regional centers. So instead of putting everything in the central business district, the planners decide to decentralize them. Therefore, they have planned In the north, the Woodlands Regional Center. In the east side, the Tampines Regional Center, and the western side, the Jurong Regional Center. So just now we are looking at all the different land use, right? To place the industry. So the industries and the residences will be interwoven together. So it's easier to, rather than all of us go to work in the Central Business District, and shop at Orchard Road, why not we can also shop in the big regional centers? That's the main idea, so that you don't cram traffic in certain areas, and then you don't cram everybody in one certain area. So we disperse and decentralize the urban centers. Okay, and also we have the Institute of Higher Learning and business nodes. So again, it is easier to work near where you live. Okay. So this is the Central Business District. Again, it's mostly historical. It's already planned from the beginning. So you can see a lot of the skyscrapers here. This is the beginning, okay? And then after that, you have the downtown area where all the major financial institutions, the major banks are placed here, because at the end of the day, Singapore is still seen as a financial hub. So this is where most of them are located. And this again shows the Northern Gateway, the Woodlands Regional Center. There's already a new MRT line, the TEL, serving this area. It connects to the city. And you can see the Woodlands North, they are developing it to have future housing right next to Republic Polytechnic. Okay, and you also have mixed use and industrial developments. Hold on, Okay, sorry for that. So Woodlands right now is not as developed. You still have lots of greenery, but this is how Woodlands is going to look like. If you're already at if you go to Causeway Point, you see a new building called Wood Square that houses lots of offices. So instead of going to the city center, people can now work in offices in Wood Square, just opposite Causeway Point. And that's just the beginning. We're moving northwards at Woodlands North Coast area. So it's going to be more built up, and more people, and the government is also building more housing developments, so that it's all within this huge regional center. You do not need to work in the urban areas anymore. Okay. Similarly for Tampines, if you go to Tampines 1, Tampines Mall, you have so many houses there, so many houses and so many businesses right there. So it's easier to get to your workplace. Similarly, in Jurong Regional Center, this is the future Jurong Lake District next to Jurong Town Hall. We already have many business parks there, near IMM and near the hospital, but they are building more flats next to Jurong Town Hall. So this is going to be one of my last slides. We are ending quite soon. Again, as I mentioned earlier, we need to be looking towards the future. Okay, so we want to be a city of the future that is sustainable. That means it can meet future demands, and it can also meet the climatic changes, for instance. So knowing that global warming is a concern, the government is planning to how to mitigate the risk, how to avoid flooding. So at the coastal areas, we are going to build flood walls, floodgates, pump stations, so that we do not flood the lower land areas of Singapore. This happens in the East Coast area, okay? So they are going to build flood walls along the coast, so that when the water levels rise, there isn't going to be flooding there. This is a serious issue, okay? Because when you have flooding, then it affects businesses, it affects traffic, so on and so forth. And what about food production? You know that Singapore relies so much on food exports. So what about if we can grow our food in our city center? What if you can grow your food in your own HDB estate? Would that be great? Would that be wonderful? Or you can grow your food in vertical farms. Have you heard of vertical farms? Vertical farms is okay. The normal farm is just a plot of land, then you grow vegetables, right? So instead of growing vegetables on a plot of land, you build a building and then you grow the vegetables there inside the building. Then you can control the light, control the fertilizer, and that's vertical farming. So we are looking towards even having 30% of food production in this kind of buildings. So the government is looking at 30% by 2030. That is going to be wonderful. That means you can have your source of vegetables coming right there. What they are doing now is at Kutek Park Hospital is just that they have roof gardens, and where some of the volunteers grow vegetables up there, and then they harvest it, then they can sell the vegetables. That's already happening in Kutek Park Hospital. So imagine if this is more widespread. So instead of relying on vegetables from Malaysia, which could be affected by climate or whatnot, you already have your vegetables growing on top of your houses. Okay. And the other one is enabling thermal comfort. So putting in more greenery on top of your buildings so that you don't get so much hot solar gain into your houses, because right now the temperatures are rising, right? So by having more greenery, you also enable thermal comfort. Thermal comfort means you cut down the heat from the sun. Yes, and this is also quite exciting development. Instead of building on grade on ground, we are also, why not look into building underground? Why not put shops or houses underground? Why not put offices underground? It may look like it's strange to put a office or shops underground, but you already have shops underground. Okay, if you go to shopping center, you have B2, B3, B4, because it has to link to your MRT stations, right, which are underground. But why not put spaces to live, spaces to work underground? This be exciting, because if you keep on building on top, then you may end up not having enough space. So build it underground. Okay, I think Singapore is one of the only cities that are looking into this, because really we have a space crunch. Okay, so that's for the big picture. You guys understand so far? If you understand so far, give us a thumbs up, because I know it's quite a complex subject. But you can read up. If you want to read up, you go to this website, Urban Redevelopment Authority, ura.gov.sg. That's where you can review, look at all these items that were discussed. Okay. So as mentioned earlier, URA, or the Urban Redevelopment Authority, governs, together with the Ministry of National Development, governs how the city is planned, and also govern the detailed plans on the properties. Okay, so this is also a place where you, if you want to find out, okay, what's the master plan zoning, what kind of land use you can use, what are the detailed plans on each property, and then you want to look at the private residential property, you want to check how much you need to pay. For architects, this is a place where you get your permit to build. Okay, before you get to build anything, you need to get clearance from the URA. They call it a planning permission. So you must satisfy certain guidelines before you can build. So it's not suka-suka build anyhow you like. You need to comply with the regulations first. You need to submit to this URA. So normally it'll take about a week. They look at your plans, then they look at your building design, then maybe after 1 month or 2 months, then they clear, and then you can move on to the building more detailed design. Because before you can build anything, this is like the first gateway. Okay, so it's not as easy as you think. You need to go through them to get the permission. Okay, so these are the more the micro stuff that you need to know. So land use is important. So the whole island is divided into zones. Okay, dictated by this, rather represented by these colors. Okay, you can see residential is marked by the pale orange, commercial areas marked by dark blue, commercial and residential is marked by light blue. That means you can have commercial below and you can have residential on top. For example, like Hillian building, right? You have a shopping center below, you have condos upstairs. Or North Point, you have the shopping center below, you have on top you have residences. Or it could be a space only for commercial. That means it has to be a shopping center or it has to be a bank related to commerce. It cannot be anything else. It cannot be a house. Okay, but so for residential plots, it has to be either an apartment, a condominium, or a bungalow. It cannot be a school. Okay, so if and business means it could be is dedicated for office or dedicated for manufacturing, light business. Okay, light industry. These are that's why it's really important to know what you can build on these plots of land. You do not want like I mentioned earlier, a random placement of building anywhere. You either combine them together or you make it efficient use of the land. Okay. Next thing to know is land density. How much can you build? How many stories you can build? Whether this area offers you a higher build-up area or lower build-up area. Again, is also determined by how closely you want people to live together. Okay, certain areas you don't need to have higher land density. For example, in residential area, you don't want so many tall buildings in a residential area, so you can lower it down. And if you are built next to an airport, because of the flight path, you also don't want to build higher, so you make land density lower. Okay, and this is determined by the plot ratio. What is plot ratio? As you can see in the diagram here, A stands for the site or plot area. How you calculate plot area? Plot area, you just multiply the length and breadth of the site. So that's why for you guys who are doing maths, hey, how come I need to know area of rectangles, area of trapezium, whatnot? Yeah, that's why you need to know, because you need to calculate certain things like this, the land area. Okay, after that, you calculate what is known as the GFA, or gross floor area. That means the total area of your building. So first story plus second story plus third story, so on and so forth, that's the gross floor area. So B plus C is the total gross floor area of your building. The plot ratio is determined by your entire gross floor area divided by the site plot area. So the higher the number, the higher the density. So you can see here in the next slide, the numbers that you're allowed to build. That determines your land density. If you have 4.2, that means your total floor area could be 4 times the plot area. If you have 15, then it's 15 times. If you have 1, that means whatever that you build is the same as your plot area. So 15 will indicate that you need to build something taller. Okay, 4 it could be medium rise. 1 means it has to be low rise building. So this is how you understand by looking at these plot areas. So sometimes when you look at the master plan, if you look at the current building located on that current plot of land, how come on the master plan it's indicated as 4.0, for example, but how come right now in the building it's only a low-rise building? That would mean that in the future you could build a taller building on the same plot of land. You understand what I mean so far? If you don't understand, please shake your head. If you understand, please give me a thumbs up. So it's important for you to know the plot ratio of the land that you are given, okay, before you start to build. So the higher the number, I repeat, the higher the number means that you can build more stories. The lower the number, you are only building lower stories. That's all. Next is site coverage. How much on the plot of land that you can cover? So you compare your build-up area, your first story, versus the land area. So you can see here the building or covered areas shown as gray, and then the area computed as site coverage is only those areas that are on the ground. Okay, and then the rest has to be green. So for certain like bungalow plots, let's say 35%. That means only 35% of the entire plot has to be your building. You cannot occupy more than 35%. That means the rest has to be roads or greenery. Why they have this kind of ruling? Because you do not want the whole plot to be covered by just building. So remember I mentioned about having a bit of greenery, having a bit of nature, right? And also having a bit of space for people to walk on. That's why the URA make certain guidelines like this so that people can still put a driveway, can still put a pedestrian path, can still put trees on the plot of land. Otherwise, the whole plot of land is going to be covered by just building and there's no space for you to plant any trees and it's not going to be pleasant. Okay, so we also have guidelines restricting building height. So there is a floor to floor height. So certain buildings can only have, for example, in a residential building like your HDB, you have 3.6 floor to floor, 3.6 meters every floor. Okay, you don't want to have too low a floor to floor. You don't want to have 2.8 meters, for example. Then you can touch the ceiling already by then. So you don't want to be in a house where you can touch the ceiling. So you must have enough building height, floor to floor, so that you can have ample ceiling space. Because if you do not, if you do not control this, then developers can anyhow build the floor to floor height. So in the end, you're going to have an office that is going to have a low ceiling. Then you'll be, working in you don't feel comfortable working in an office with a low ceiling. That's why we need to determine this. Okay, so the number of stories is determined by plot ratio and also by the floor to floor height. Then even in houses, when you want to build houses, there is an overall, for example, a 3-story house, you have a overall height of 15.5 meters. You cannot go beyond that. Okay, so that houses don't look so big and monolithic. So there is a control there. Okay, for 3-story houses, you have 15 meters, 15.5 meters. Next, okay, even in the central business district, there is a building height control. I mentioned this last time in my city tour webinar. The majority of buildings in Singapore are limited to 280 meters or 919 feet. No taller than that until the GoCo Tower is built in 2016, 64 floors and is at 290 meters. You see, Godzilla is only 120 meters, 120 meters, but majority of the tallest buildings in Singapore are not more than 280 meters. Only a little leeway is given to GoCo Tower, 290 meters. That's also because the developers really fought for it. With URA, they say, hey, I need to build 290 meters, and that extra 10 meters, they need to fight for it. Okay, they need to appeal. At the end of the day, URA relented. Okay, give them the extra 10 meters. But that's also because there is a flight path issue. Therefore, we do not want to allow buildings to go taller than 290 meters. If you know, there are many skyscrapers around the world. They are all competing to go as tall as even 1 kilometer in Saudi Arabia. So imagine a 1 kilometer tall building. That will never happen in Singapore for now, at least. So we keep it to below 300 meters. Okay. Okay. Next, you have the physical setbacks. Physical setbacks is the setback from the boundary. Okay, surrounding the boundary, you have the side boundary, you have the rear boundary, and the boundary facing the main road. So these are also determined. For example, for if you are facing a Cat 1 road, which is a major road, then you need to have more setback, minimum 24 meters. Okay, if you have a small road with 2 lanes, then it's 7.5 meters. So you are not allowed to build any closer than 7.5 meters. You need to, from your gate to your building line, it has to be 7.5 meters. Then to your neighbors, boundary wall, it has to be 2 meters because you want to have space for some plants. Otherwise, you can't grow plants there. Okay, so it's a 2 meter setback. And then at the back, also 2 meter setback. So we do not want owners to build all the way to the boundary line. Because if you have that kind of situation, then it's going to be unpleasant. You can't grow your trees, you can't put your pedestrian path. Okay, and then it will be so built up. Basically, we do not want a city where it is so built up with these physical forms, okay, these buildings. So that's why we have a setback. So it looks more comfortable, okay? And then there's also this thing called facade articulation. URA has this regulation about placing buildings, okay, very uniformly built like that. See, blocks are placed in a narrow gap and building massing is not effectively treated. We do not want buildings to look like a wall facing the street. So we want buildings to look more interesting and punctuated with sky terraces. And this sky terraces also help to break down the building massing. Not only that, but it also allows residents to gather together in a public space within the apartments or condominiums. This is where they get to know each other, say hi, meet around, chit chat, have some conversation, and get to know their neighbors. So, and it also introduce elements of greenery inside the building. So that's why you don't see just blocks and blocks of glass, blocks of concrete buildings. We want to have some punctuations of this kind of social spaces. So this is facade articulation. The other thing is building length. So URA discourage building like this. That means all the blocks are close to each other. So imagine if you are staying in a block of flats right behind this development on the left side there. Will you feel angry and upset? Because all this while you're enjoying a view to the sea, for example, right? No one blocks your view. Then suddenly this new development, they are all built so close together like this. Definitely your views are blocked, right? And not only that, your ventilation is also blocked. The breezes that you get from the sea is blocked. The views are blocked. So that's why, and also from the urban point of view, let's say you are driving along the road and you see this huge wall of buildings. This is going to be unpleasant. And while you're driving, you also cannot see the sea beyond. So that's why URA said, no, you cannot be like that. You got to separate these blocks and then have some spaces in between the blocks so that you can avoid blocking views or you can avoid ventilation. So this is a really, I would say, a benevolent or good design strategy so that you don't impinge the rights of other users living in the city. Because I've seen photographs of tall towers in Hong Kong where they are built so close together, and therefore they create this kind of monumental wall-like buildings. It's going to be unpleasant. So that's why, even though we know that land is scarce in Singapore, but there still needs to be some kind of balance to allow comfort in views and so on and so forth. Okay, and next, we also have landscape replacement. I covered that in our green architecture talk as well. So basically, it means that whatever that you build on, the greenery that you fell, or the trees that you chop in order to build your buildings, you just replace them and put on top of your buildings, either on the sky terraces or your facade, roof garden, your public decks, and so on. So you can see this effectively used at Kampong Admiralty. You have the lush greenery on the roof gardens. Okay, I think that's the end of my talk. I'm going to open the floor. Okay, I have a special assignment. Okay, assignment lah. I'm going to give you 3 weeks. 3 weeks to do. What you need to do is explore your neighborhood or any town area, okay, and record the urban design features that you think are special and unique and make life there more pleasant. Okay, for example, you stay in Tampines. What makes Tampines Hub a draw, or how come it's so appealing to everybody there? Okay, if you're staying in Jurong, what makes IMM so special, or that area around the hospital so special? Is it the connections? Is it the programs, or rather the shops, or is it what? Is it the next to MRT or what? Or if you're staying in Bishan, is it next to Bishan Park? Okay, if you're staying in Woodlands, if you're staying near the Admiralty Park, or if you are very lucky and you stay near Orchard Road, what makes Orchard Road really an exciting place? So explore your neighborhood, take lots of pictures, okay, put them on a PowerPoint or whatever, or you can even do sketching, okay, and compile this. I leave it to you to how you want to do it. Okay, even if you want to do video also can. Okay, do a tour. Hey, I'm here, blah 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 blah. Then you say these are features. Also can. You want to do your live also can. I leave it to you. Leave it up to your creativity to do. Compile that. Okay, here I put PDF format, but you want to give me a video format also can. Then email to to me, farid1870@gmail.com by Christmas Eve. Okay? And then I'll see who gets the best entry will get a mystery gift. This mystery gift, sure, short one. So very good for you. Okay? So I'm going to leave it as that. Okay. Yes, we end the talk quite early today, and now I can open the floor to your questions. Okay, anybody has any questions? Oh, no questions, best, bagus, It means that my talk is I thought you can unmute yourself. Can you unmute? Okay. Anyone has any questions? Hopefully I can answer. If you cannot answer, then I got to ask Mr. Google. Yes, Mr. Abdul Rahman, can we ask? Yes, you can. Maybe 10 minutes, 12 o'clock. We finish everything. Okay, guys, do you enjoy the talk? If yes, yes, please say yes. If not, also say no, I don't enjoy this at all.
Yes, yes.
Okay, good to hear. Because I would love your feedback. Of course, don't give me negative feedback, okay? Make me sad. Okay, please, please introduce yourself.
I have a question.
Wait, take turns, I'll call out your name. Then you introduce who you are, from which school, what level. Okay, I heard Aisha and Hazir Riksan want to ask some question.
Yes. Hello. Hello.
Yes.
Mr. Ahmad Farid. Regarding the underground, you're mentioning about there's a intention of building underground, right?
Yes.
But what if there are roots?
Oh, of course, building underground means it has to be built together with what's on top. They got to do a soil study.
What study?
Soil study. Because a lot of certain parts of Singapore is marine clay, soft soil. You know that, especially near the coastal area. So before they even start to build anything, they got to do a soil investigation. Then there will be a report. This one will be submitted by the civil engineer. So we do not want a building that will sink, right?
Yeah, then
the basement will sink, right? So if you know the soil, the condition, then you can build to compensate for the soft nature of the soil. So you put in more foundation, or you design for it. So you want to build underground, yes, you got to ensure that the land is intact. Of course, it has to be whatever that's underground, you got to survey what's on top. That's how the MRT stations are built.
Yeah.
Right?
They are applicable to the MRT that they are building, the circle line, yellow line, or whatever line there is.
Yeah. So even as these MRT stations are built, do you know what's going on down below? You don't know, right?
Don't know.
Yeah lah. So some engineers are already doing some engineers already have done their study. Otherwise, you can't build. Then upstairs all will come crumbling down, right? So they have to do.
How long is the study takes? Like, because our like MRT line, it takes very long time to build, right, underground. So applicable to housing, as those malls that's underground. That's now they have a lot of malls that underground. Usually before they submit for all this approval, right?
Yes.
To check all this. And how long does it take for this process?
It depends. Okay, the process will take. It's a process lah. So it will take up to a year. For the approvals. Yeah. Because could be back and forth. It's not just one time you submit, all clear. No. They have to be really careful. They got to ask lots of questions. Then they have to submit calculations and all these things.
So there's a lot of procedure.
Yeah.
Right?
So majority of the work is done by engineers lah. Architects just look into how the spaces are created. How's the functions relate to one another. Like you want to build a hospital, you must ensure that certain spaces make sense, okay, and how they are connected to different functions. But beyond that, the engineer got to look at the structure, the beams, the columns, all this.
So there's
And
a lot of
yeah, a
mathematics.
lot of coordination, a lot of dialogues, a lot of, we cannot all operate individually or autonomously or independently. We all must work together as a team. So if you guys want to be engineers, you guys want to be architects or designers, you need to know how to talk to people. If you do not know how to talk to people, then one person talk like chicken, the other one talk like duck. Then in the end, your building looks like something very unusable.
Okay,
Like
thank you so
something,
much.
yes,
Mr.
yes.
Farid,
Thank you for okay. Now, Fal, yes,
Thank you.
last
You
time
can
I
meet
live in Punggol
yes.
Emerald, Block 265C.
Mm.
But
Well, you no need to tell your blog. No, people later will go to your blog.
because will the thing change? Will it change?
Your blog, is it? It depends.
Yeah.
Depends. Normally, certain plots of land has this thing called the 99-year lease. Then for that period, you cannot change. But sometimes, residential properties, they can always, once they reach a certain age, right, say 20 years, 30 years, if you are living in a private development like condo, right, sometimes after many years, like 40 years,
Mine is a HDB near a condo.
okay, HDB usually will just remain there. It won't change. At most, they'll do some kind of refurbishment on the facade, or they add some toilets or whatever. Not, but if you are living in a private residence like condo, you have this thing called the on-block redevelopment, where after a few decades of living there, right, the residents may just want to rebuild everything because the apartments are very low, or they want to maximize the plot ratio. Remember I mentioned plot ratio? The number could be higher, but what is the current building right now is lower than the what it could be accommodated for, what could be built for.
The future.
So they can, yeah, in the future. So they can tear down the whole development and rebuild. Yeah, that happens a lot of times in the development thing. I see Danish has a question. Okay, I hope that answer your question, Nofal. Thank you for asking. Danish, do you have a question?
How do they build underground? The dirt will not fall down on
They
the
need,
walls. Yeah.
sorry, the what will not, what underground on the wall?
How do the dirt don't make
the dirt.
the wall? Yeah, the wall break.
Oh, during construction, the dirt will definitely be there. But like say when they want to build underground, right, they got to dig. Then because of the soil there, they got to reinforce the structures around the wall. So they have to create a special kind of foundation so that the soil won't collapse. Okay, so they need to cast the slab. Slab is the floor area lah, the floor. So you need to cast that sequentially. And then after everything is finished, then they dispose of the soil, okay, somewhere out there. And then after that, they clean up the building. That's all. But it's what I say here sounds very simple, but actually it's a very complex procedure. Very not easy lah. Okay. Somebody asked, Elias asked, can Wi-Fi signals pass through underground if Singapore were to be built underground? Yes. They will have boosters to enable signals to strengthen the Wi-Fi signals. Okay, Raihan say found the talk exciting and fun. Thank you. Thank you for that feedback. Anybody else? Any other question? Are you excited to like growing vegetables on top of your roof gardens?
Hi, Farid. Yusuf here, Farid.
Yes.
Hello?
Yes, I'm listening. Hi, Yusuf.
Okay, Farid, I've got two questions.
Hmm.
One is regarding the seawater, the climate change.
Yep.
Will it help if the Singapore were to so-called suck in the salt water change to drinking water? Will the water level goes down? Then second question is if I were to buy property, right, condo, which should I buy? I mean, the 99 years freehold or 999?
Oh man.
Yeah, just give me a
Okay, that kind of question, all multi-factor lah. It depends on what's your needs and your basically your resources also lah. But normally we'll go for the higher number lah, because it means that the 999 or freehold lah, of course. but with that kind of definition, then it'll be more expensive. But to me, you want to buy property, maybe you should look at the amenities surrounding the property, namely the MRT stations or interchanges or shopping centers, because with this kind of when you are in close proximity to certain amenities like that, when you want to sell it, it will definitely give you a higher value in the future. So for example, I'm now staying in UT in Choa Chu Kang, and my friend just bought an apartment next to Bukit Panjang Plaza in Hillian. And you know that Bukit Panjang and Hillian is next to downtown line Bukit Panjang MRT station. We have the same floor area, but his unit is much more expensive than my flat. So it means that location is really, really important when you are buying property. Okay. And then your first question about salt water converted to drinking water. Yes, Singapore, we are already doing that, but desalination also needs space, okay, and it's also expensive process. But that does not mean that by converting the salt water, you lower down the sea level, okay, because sea level will always be rising up. You cannot be changing it. So, and we know that the government knows that certain parts of Singapore are low lying. There's this always threat of flood water rising and then create more floods. If you know that, you know that Bukit Timah used to be like that. It's always flooding back in the 60s and 70s, right? Even till now, we also have flooding issues in Bukit Timah, and therefore the government together with UB has built a lot of underground drains under your roads to divert the water away so that you don't flood. So even with certain measures like that, you still have floods there. So that's why those areas near the coast, the government is really looking at how to mitigate the risk of flood. This one was covered by the Prime Minister in one of his national rally, I think in 2019 National Day rally. You may visit. You may go to YouTube and look for it. I think he talks about it. Okay. Afif, okay. I hope that answered your question. And Afif asking about, may you show the slide with your email in it? Okay. Never mind. I think I show lah. There you go. My name, Farid 1870. I'm not born in 1870. I may look ancient, but I'm not born in 1870. That's basically my architectural registration number, 1870. Farid1870@gmail.com. Okay, any other questions? It's already noon time. If no questions, I'll get Miss Lily Suryani to give a small speech, closing speech. Boleh? Can? Okay. Assalamualaikum, Sister Lily.
Can you see me?
Yes. Can.
Okay, fine. Thank you, Farid. Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Farid, for the lively presentation. Every time you never fail. Okay, you never fail truly. Okay, as I discussed with you earlier, and that we're going to have more in June, inshallah, if Allah izinkan, if Allah permits, that we go through Islamic architecture again. Correct? Not? Would you like to do more on Islamic architecture? Because we didn't do quite well at the time because of all the technical glitches.
Yeah.
So inshallah, Allah reda and Allah allows us to do it again on Islamic architecture or anything on architecture again in future. Is it okay, Mr. Mafari?
Inshallah, my pleasure.
Okay, fine. Okay, now that's all I have to say. Then there'll be more activities, programs coming up. Okay, just some information. So Monday we have the 6th December. We have the flotation by Mr. Abdurrahman Masroon, and then again on the 6th December, followed by 8th December. That was very interesting, both of them on the space shuttle. Okay, Monday flotation, and Thursday 6th December flotation, 8th December on Wednesday space shuttle by Mr. Najib Hansurati, which is he has done a lot of research on it and we good coverage as well. And then followed by 9th December by again Mr. Ahmad Farid on the health workshop. Healthy habits make happy kids. This will be also another interesting one. Okay, talking about healthy. It's a healthy workshop for all the youngsters and everyone as well. So please do join in on 9 December. And then what else do we have there? 13 December on Monday, we have the Five Senses by Mr. Rahman. Also interesting. Please follow with his program. And then you have the 15 December Mysterious Mode by Mr. Najib Hansurati. That will end off the whole session. So for these remainders, please join them and get more people to come along. All the programs are good, but we're not getting good response as well. For whatever reason, please call everyone to come along and get more people to join in. And indeed, if you are keen, please make some contribution by doing an info to 90540424, so that this money will go to paying or giving a token to all presenters for their hard work and effort and research and dedication and commitment and patience and determination in imparting knowledge to you as well, or giving you good learning. To pay for every session of delivery, and to pay for whatever cost that may incur, plus the Zooming platform as well of 300 slots. I'm providing it 300 slots because we used to have 200 people coming in, but truly this time is quite disappointing. But never mind, I told Mr. Farid not to be dampened. We just continue with it because it is chosen by Allah. Now all of us have been chosen Allah to get this knowledge now. So please Reda and ikhlas and syukur with it. Okay, inshallah. Thank you very much. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam. Okay, so I hope next year we can walk the streets, okay? No need to sit in Zoom lah. Go on the street and then, look at buildings, then talk there. Better, right? So hopefully, inshallah, Allah allow us for this whatever lah variant to be lifted from our backyard, and then we can have a more pleasant interaction with you guys. So I really enjoy this talk. So you guys enjoy this talk, then join me next year, or no, next year. Yeah, next year. Or you want to submit? I do look forward to your creative submissions and be as creative as you want. You guys so have to be more creative than me, right? You want to do TikTok also can. No problem, but can do a series of TikToks. Up to you. You want to do a YouTube also can. But you want to do boring lah, you want to do like PowerPoint, put in PDF, they want boring also can. But I want to be entertained as well, right? So that you get the best mystery gift. Okay, so with that, enjoy your December holidays, make full use of it. Don't just watch TikTok videos, create your own content, and do your learning as well. Okay, don't forget your books. With that, Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. See you guys again. Okay.